It's important to tell our stories to our children, to share and reshare our histories with one another. And it can be even more important to tell the painful parts we're ashamed to tell because they reflect badly on us, our families, or on our nation. It's important to mark tragedy and not just victory. Not just because the truth needs to be told, but because of what we discover in the process and how it can heal us. The George Floyd Memorial at 38th and Chicago in Minneapolis is a case in point. It tells the truth of what happened and gives visitors space to make meaning from it, which affects what they do from now on. That's what's happening right now as we confront multiple issues in our nation's history that we haven't dealt with completely because we kept silent about them or tried too hard to pretty them up. And so it was that the children came one day to their teacher with a question that clearly troubled them. We have heard stories that other people in other countries kill their children to please their gods. Is that true? The teacher heard the fear in the children's words, but answered honestly. That's very true. In fact, in our own city, Jerusalem, there is a valley that belonged to the sons of Hinnom, where people sacrificed children before our people came to live here. Now we use that name for a place of torment called Gehenna. Did our people ever do anything so horrible? Asked one small voice, almost too soft to hear. Of course not! We're not barbarians! Never! Came the voices of the other children, washing over the questioner like a tidal wave. Don't be so sure, the teacher interrupted. It did happen. Almost. Only once. When? The children's mouths were open with disbelief, and their eyes were as wide and round as birds' eyes. Once, God decided to test grandfather Abraham, the teacher began, and told him that he was to sacrifice his son. Which one? A child asked. Ishmael or Isaac? The son he loved, the teacher continued, pleased that someone remembered so much of their lessons. Surely he loved them both as our parents love us and our sisters and brothers. The children were being drawn into the suspense already. His only son, the teacher teased them with the mystery. But there were two, the students shouted as one, annoyed with her. Isaac. The answer was spoken in a whisper. After he slept, Abraham got ready to leave. With Isaac and 2 servants, he traveled to the mountain God showed him. Abraham told the servants to wait while he and Isaac worshipped, and that they would return. The father and son climbed the mountain, and Abraham made an altar ready for the sacrifice. I see the fire and the wood for a sacrifice, but where is the lamb to be sacrificed? Isaac asked. The old man answered his son without really answering. God will provide the lamb, was all he said. The answer came as Abraham began binding Isaac to the wood for the sacrifice. Just as he lifted the knife, No, don't do it, stop, wait! The children's shouts were a wild uproar filling the room. That's just what the angel said to Abraham, said the teacher. And when Abraham looked, he found a ram caught by its horns in a thicket. So he sacrificed the ram instead of his son. Now, you rough and rowdy angels may hear of other people sacrificing their children, but never among our people. You see, so that we wouldn't forget that it's almost happened once, our ancestors built the temple on the very spot where Abraham almost sacrificed Isaac. Even though it comes up as an option in the lectionary every 3 years, most preachers, myself included, don't even want to touch this story with a 10-foot pole. It raises too many uncomfortable issues that challenge the picture that we like to maintain of God as all good or all-knowing with kind intentions and pure motives. But while it's good to read every text with a critical eye toward how it's been used and misused over the centuries, if we're afraid to open up and delve into a story because of where it might lead or the uncomfortable questions it might raise with us, we miss the opportunity to discover more of God and more of ourselves. We can have a picture of God as perfect that we try hard to maintain throughout our lives. Often it's a static picture, and when circumstances challenge that perfection, revealing flaws in God's character or the limits of God's power as we've been taught growing up, we can be tempted to just throw away all of God. But stories can stretch our God. They can challenge the picture that we have of God to grow, and even for God or that picture to mature. Did it ever occur to us that even God might have to grow up? And stories can also show us how imperfect supposedly holy people are, and how much in need of second chances they are. When stories stretch and challenge us, it can cause our faith to become more resilient, less brittle and breakable, and above all, more living and life-giving for us and for others. There's a reason why I'm preaching on this story today, now in the middle of all that's been happening, because events in our lives can open us up to hearing a story like this in a way that we've never heard it before, one that helps us make sense of where our experience of a pandemic, a falling economy, and a raw confrontation of our racist legacy might be leading, and what they might be revealing about us and about our God. I want to close with some words this week from Cameron Trimble, a UCC pastor in Atlanta, who writes, "It's been nearly a month since our world was moved to the streets in protest of George Floyd's murder. For nearly 1 month, we have listened to one another's stories, talked of our pain, faced our national shame, and sought healing of deep, old wounds. For nearly 1 month, we have broken ourselves in the hopes of finally breaking ourselves free. It's been 135 days since COVID came to our shores," she continues. "For nearly half of a year, we have lost ones we love, distanced from those we hope to protect, and learned to live with anxiety in the smallest things. Grocery shopping, opening doors, shaking hands. For nearly half of 1 year, we have changed everything about our lives in the hopes of changing everything for a better future. These are days of reckoning," she continues, "of sacred pain, where we look at one another through all of the isms that divided us and finally see that the pain in me sees the pain in you. The heartbreak in me sees the heartbreak in you. The fear in me sees the fear in you. The loneliness in me sees the loneliness in you. The dreamer in me sees the dreamer in you. I do not know where this path leads," she concludes, "but I trust it leads us back to one another. I trust the breaking and I trust the mending. That is the one gift of faith. We know the ways of life, death, and resurrection."